Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I'm gradually drying out, which is good. We had a night where the first drive for Indiana didn't go great for Ohio State, and the weather wasn't great for Ohio State. Everything else pretty much went perfectly, but the weather, as someone who was out in it for what felt like about 7 hours, was not great.
I did it. Was it raining?
Yeah, I don't know how. I honestly don't know how much it actually showed up on TV because it was just this between this fine mist and it was sort of heavy rain at times, but it never stopped. And if you looked at the radar, there was nothing there. It was like mystery rain, just out of nowhere. I think it was spite rain.
Well, and I recall us both saying, "Don't worry about the rain," and you looked at your phone. And your phone told you no rain until midnight. So it wasn't raining leaving the game at midnight. But you're saying it did rain.
It did in fact rain. Yes, I guess the weather app didn't see the rain because it was magical invisible rain that was, however, still wet. So yes, it was a lovely day down on the sidelines. But and Ryan Day in the postgame interviews talked about the fact that they weren't expecting rain, but very very clearly they didn't have any issues with it, and he said he was very happy with how they handled it.
Yeah, they did a great job handling it in the 54-7 win over Indiana. I know we've got three people here: me, Tom, and Kevin. Kevin predicted 52-17. Tom, you predicted 48-14.
Mm-hmm.
I had 49-7. So, do you guys want to congratulate me on my victory?
I mean, if you need this, I know it's been a rough stretch for you.
It's
in
not
the bold,
about bold predictions, Tom.
I know this has been a rough stretch for you in the bold prediction shows. Well, don't worry. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that later.
No, let's
But
not.
but yes, you did. You did come pretty close. It was good. You missed by 5 points. That is a fantastic showing. But we were all I think we were all in the neighborhood, which is good.
No, it was good, and it does feel like we have a pretty good sense of what this team is going to do. All joking aside, there is very little defenses can seem to do against this Ohio State offense, and really, there's not much that the Indiana offense was going to be able to do against the Ohio State defense. And I believe we said earlier in the day or earlier in the week, if Indiana comes out on their first drive and just marches down the field and scores, don't get upset.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the scripted plays. They've been practicing this series. They've these are their best plays, and it's like the first series is like a greatest hits album.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the game are the deep cuts, and it's like, yeah, there are no hits here.
Mm-hmm. And here's the first drive of the game and the first drive of the second half for Indiana. 15 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. That's the first drive of the game. 8 plays, 47 yards. That's the first drive of the second half. You go in the locker room, you make some adjustments, okay? Hey, that's pretty good. Those are two pretty good. Here's the rest of the game.
Oh.
Turns out that was not. They did not. Why didn't they make the whole game out of the 3 plays minus 6 yards, 4 plays minus 8 yards, 3 plays minus 9 yards. You're hearing me say the word minus a lot. 3 plays 8 yards, 1 play minus 1 yard, 6 plays 16 yards, 3 plays minus 1 yard, 3 plays 5 yards, 5 plays 17 yards. That's that was pretty thorough.
Yes, but as I mentioned before the show, let's not forget, Jack Tuttle did get hurt. He left the game. You had to bring in Donovan McCauley. You had to bring in the other Indiana
Grant Gremmel.
Grant Gremmel. The
Mm-hmm.
first time anybody had ever heard of him from an Ohio State perspective.
And what we know about Gremmels from the movies in the 80s, you don't want to get them wet. And it was raining. I mean, Indiana, 128 yards of total offense, 122 on those 2 drives. Man, that was a good one. You're so mad that was a good one. Keep
No,
going.
because and I don't know that and after the game, it's after midnight. They're going to feed him. So who knows what's going on in Bloomington tonight? But just a really expected offensive performance from the Indiana Hoosiers because this is it's not hard to look at this offense and see what they've done against everybody else, which is almost nothing, and then apply that to an Ohio State defense that is getting better, and to see this is not how does Indiana actually score, and that's something we talked about all week long. How do they sustain drives? How are they on third downs? How do they pick up third downs? Turns out they don't, and this fell right in line with what we had been expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the week, I came in on Monday without having really looked at Indiana that much, thinking, okay, this is probably going to be a pretty, this will at least be a competitive game. Indiana's a decent team. They've had some close losses. And the more you really looked at the numbers, it was like, oh, no. They're just going to go into the wood chipper for 3 hours. And then they did. And, you look at the numbers, it's, 8 of 17 for 80 yards. So the yards per pass for Indiana was just a little over 4 yards per pass. That's not particularly good. However, that was a lot better than the yards per rush, which was 1.3. So if Indiana had 7 downs, they would have almost picked up a first down.
Well, you know what? Maybe you think about a rule change at that point.
There was, Ohio State got the rule change last year. You were, I think Indiana might have considered wanting 7 downs, maybe a running clock in the second half. I think you might have wanted that as well.
Yeah, it turned about being fair play. Yes, the running clock would have been nice. 10 first downs for Indiana. There are quite a few amazing statistics from this game. One of them involves C.J. Stroud and the offense that we'll get to when we talk about the offense. Ohio State had 15 players with at least a half a tackle for loss in this one. They finished with 14 tackles for loss. 15. I don't know that that's a school record. I'm going to guess it's pretty close. And there was just no hope. In the offensive line, they tried. But once Tuttle was gone, this offense should have just, at that point, waved the white flag and go to that running clock, talk to the refs, talk to Mr. Day. Excuse us, Mr. Day. Can we go home now? Can we just do we have to do this? We can call this at 37-7 or whatever it was at one point in the second quarter. Like we don't need to do this. We could stop this and just let's just be friends.
Go sit inside where it's dry and warm.
Yes.
Yeah, that was that. You keep mentioning Tuttle, and yes, losing your quarterback is going to impact the game. If Tuttle plays the whole game, what's the final score of this game? Because Tuttle doesn't play defense, and there was just nothing there. It was just nothing, and the line got swallowed whole most of the night. There's no skill talent there. I mean, there's just. You put a better quarterback out there. It's not like Jack Tuttle is C.J. Stroud. It's not like Jack Tuttle is, pick what's his name, the mailman from
Karl Malone,
The Flavin.
The mailman from Georgia. I keep wanting to say Spencer Bennett. It's Bennett something. It's one of those Georgia quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett, yes.
Spencer Rattler.
Stetson Bennett, yes.
Stimpy Bennett.
Yes, the mailman with the name of a hat. Yes, Stetson Bennett. He's not even Stetson Bennett.
No.
He's just a dude. He's just like, the anonymous Indiana quarterback who you're going to forget 30 seconds after this game is over. Does he get them one extra touchdown? Okay, congratulations, it's 54-14, and all we're talking about is the fact that then. Kevin and I have then beaten you. So really, it was really kind of a fluke that your score was the closest.
Yeah, I think maybe they finished that first drive in the second half.
Yeah, sure.
Because they got it down to the red zone and couldn't finish. And so, yes, congratulations on your 54-14 loss. Tom, let's talk about that Ohio State offense because at this point, I don't know how anybody deals with it. The crazy thing to me. And maybe we can discuss this. This is an Ohio State offense that is up. What was the halftime score? Was it 37-7 or?
It was 44-7.
44-7,
I think. Yeah.
And so you think in the second half, well, you just run the ball, and that's where you finish 300 yards rushing just because you're just running the ball constantly. But that's not what they do. They continue to throw the ball, and it's not in a well, maybe it is. in a menacing, mean kind of way. But then also you get Kyle McCord to throw the ball. You get Jack Miller throwing the ball. They don't just run the clock out. Like they're treating these as practices.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're trying to get something accomplished, and they're not just trying to run the clock out. They're trying to make something of each of these games. And I kind of like it that they throw the ball with the backups, and because they didn't get to last year, so they're doing it now. They're learning from their mistakes.
Yeah, and that's something that we've heard Kevin talk about it a couple times in the past. Is you don't want to just you bring the quarterbacks in and you run student body left and you run student body right. They're not learning anything. You need to give them reps. This is an opportunity for them to get meaningful reps, and there were people who were mad that why is Ohio State throwing the ball on first down? It's like they're not bombing the ball downfield. Right. They're trying to get their quarterback some work. They're trying to just keep things moving, get them some opportunities to play. And, Kyle McCord, 5 of 6, 51 yards. Jack Miller, 2 of 3 for 35 yards. Like, that's good. Those are reps that they now have, they can learn from, because you are one injury away from Kyle McCord being the quarterback who then has to win you the Big Ten and has to get you in the college football playoff and win a college football playoff game. You can't just go like, well, he's practiced, so I'm sure it'll be fine. You have to actually let him play, get him ready. He's a true freshman, So these are some of the first reps he's gotten. He played the Akron game, but he hasn't gotten a lot of other reps. You have to take advantage of that, and they did.
Yeah, and feel free to continue sending in questions. We will get to them here shortly. C.J. Stroud, 21 of 28 for 266 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 75% completion percentage. The last 3 games, 14 touchdowns, no interceptions. Throwing the ball, and it may have been raining. I don't know. Tom says it was. I'm not sure. Dealing with that kind of weather and throwing some absolutely pinpoint passes in very tight windows, in coverage, to Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, whatever. We talked about it earlier in the week. Like, he is forming himself into every bit of Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, where you expect him to make every throw. Ryan Day says he loves his field vision. And so he's got the vision. Now he's got the accuracy. He's got the touch. And we were like, well, we were wondering how he would do against a better defense like Indiana. It turns out okay, but then next week it's what does he do against a better defense like Penn State? And I'm guessing it's going to be a lot like this.
You look at that Penn State game, and it's like, well, they have a better quarterback than Indiana does, and Jahan Dotson's a better receiver than anyone Indiana has. But other than that, I mean, how different is that game really? You want to tack 10 points on the end of the on the opponent's score there. Like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, C.J. Stroud, the trajectory for C.J. Stroud right now is go back and watch the Tulsa game, or go back and watch the Oregon game, and the Oregon game he put up huge numbers, but it wasn't. You just watch it and it doesn't look like this. This is a different kid. This is a kid. You are now seeing the guy that we saw, in practices and in spring ball a little bit, and the guy that you heard about for a year where, when he signed, it was like, well, as soon as Justin Fields leaves, this is the guy who's going to be the starter, because just wait till you see this guy. And the first couple weeks of the season, everyone was kind of like, this is the guy, like, really, you remember Arrested Development where it was like, her egg,
yes.
Egg. She get all glittered up for Easter. That was the reaction to C.J. Stroud. Like, him? This is the guy. Now you're seeing, yes, in fact, this is the guy. And who in the Big Ten can hang with this offense? Because we were going through the schedule in the car on the way home, and it's like, okay, the Penn State game next week looks a lot less daunting than it did 24 hours ago. Nebraska, like, okay, Nebraska's fine, but Nebraska has been in self-destruct mode all season. Purdue just got murder-balled by a not very good Wisconsin team. Michigan State's fine, but Michigan State beat this Indiana team 20-15 a week or two ago. And Michigan is like, yeah, I mean, they're fine. They're solid, but is Cade McNamara hanging with this team?
No, there's no downfield passing attack with Michigan, or not enough of a downfield passing attack with Michigan. They don't really try, and you have to pick up big chunks to just keep moving the ball, keep up with Ohio State. And no, there's nothing in the Big Ten. I don't even know. You take an all-star team, give them a month of bowl prep against Ohio State's offense, and maybe. Well, you better have a good offense because there's still going to be a shootout.
Well, give me which quarterback of Ohio State's remaining teams, and I will even give you Iowa in the Big Ten championship game.
Oh, jeez.
Who's your starting quarterback on that team? I mean, I feel like the answer has to be like J.J. McCarthy, and it's it's
That's
like,
hilarious,
and you
yeah.
just kind of hope like, well, maybe he's the real deal. We haven't really got
Thorne.
Peyton.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe Peyton Thorne, but you
Aiden
know,
O'Connell.
yeah. I mean, there's just. You go through. It's like Ohio State has the best talent everywhere. That was the thing I kept thinking tonight. You know, watching Indiana just stumble around and trip over their feet was, well, why don't they put in their version of Travion Henderson? Like, oh, well, they don't have that. Why don't they put in their version of the 6 offensive linemen you can just swap around however? Oh, they don't have that. Oh, they don't have their C.J. Stroud. They don't have their Garrett Wilson, their Chris Olave, their Jackson Smith-Jigba. Like nobody has that, and. This Ohio State, this is something else I said to you as we were walking out of the stadium. This Ohio State team has a taste for murder right now, and they like it. And it's like, oh boy, I don't think this is the last body they're going to drop this season.
Now I'm imagining like Ryan Day and Ohio State inviting James Franklin and Penn State over, and then discussing like Huey Lewis and the News and Whitney Houston and their album choices and things like that.
Hello, Ryan. I understand you have some Amontillado you'd like me to sample.
Stuff like that.
Yes.
Where it's going to be.
And then James Franklin gets walled up in the I mean that's like it is. Yeah, I mean I'm with you on the Huey Lewis.
Yeah, no.
What do you think of the album Sports?
Exactly. You mentioned Travion Henderson, and it's unfortunate Ohio State keeps blowing out these teams because we don't get to see enough of them. And he's, like when to just go back to Seinfeld, as we sometimes do too much, where Costanza leaves on a good note. Like he's,
Good night, everybody.
and that's what we get from Travion Henderson. And he scores 3 touchdowns. And for me, the most amazing part about those 3 touchdowns, and it's not unusual for him, like he's running into a line of defenders, and he lowers his shoulder, lowers his head, and he comes through still on his feet. Where you see a lot of guys will just fall into the end zone, and he just keeps running, and he just continues to be impressive, and he is so valuable that it's like we can't risk getting him hurt, because if he gets hurt, I don't want to say all of the hopes are dashed, but he is so good. He makes Ohio State way better than they would be without him.
Well, I mean, we just talked about the fact that Indiana doesn't have a Travion Henderson. Ohio State doesn't have another Travion Henderson. Ohio State's got some other very good backs, but they don't have a Travion Henderson. And you look at his numbers: 9 carries, 81 yards. Just another 9 yards per carry game. It's just what he does: 9 yards per carry. And this is not to take anything away from the other backs. I mean, Evan Pryor was really good tonight. Evan Pryor got 11 carries. He didn't, he ended up with only 48 yards, but there were a couple that came back on holding calls or whatever. Mayan Williams, 8 carries, 60 yards, which is 7.5 yards per. What's super impressive about that is his long was 11. Yeah. It was just all of the carries were between like 6 and 10 yards. He was just very consistent, and he only got 8 carries, and then I think kind of got dinged up maybe, and he left. So I think there were a lot of questions earlier on the post-game show when we were doing the interviews with Ryan Day and the players. There were a lot of questions about what happened with those guys. I think the answer was Mayan Williams got just a little dinged up, and Travion Henderson was like a cautionary thing more than anything else.
Yeah, and Ryan Day confirmed the Travion Henderson portion of that after the game. Receivers, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different guys catch the ball. And just spreading it around. When Chris Olave only gets 2 catches and you still score 49, 7 touchdowns, and I mean that says a lot. Good to see Marvin Harrison get out there. Emeka Egbuka continues to impress. They almost took another one back on the free kick, and it's going to happen. I mean, maybe against Michigan, perhaps. Who's to say? But just it's so. And we talked about it before the game or before the show. It's video game stuff. Like Ryan, I don't. Maybe I should ask. Like Ryan, did you grow up playing like EA Sports, NCAA football? Like because what you're doing and still throwing it in the fourth quarter, and trying to get a bunch of people involved because you like to have a lot of stats for a lot of guys, and it sure feels like video game football right now on offense for the Buckeyes.
And they're not playing on one of the high difficulty levels right now either. It is they are not on All-American or Heisman level. This is it's not junior varsity level.
Varsity.
But it's varsity. You're playing with a pretty good team and you're playing at about varsity level, and it's just like you run the play to Travion Henderson. It's like the touchdown play, and which play is that? It's the one where Travion Henderson has the ball and then he runs into the end zone. I'm like, sure, that one works.
I'll hand this back to Tony. But remember when they had the passing of the torch from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day, and they did the thing with the video game, and they handed the controller over, so he looked like he knew what to do with the controller in his hand.
Do we want to go to questions?
Yeah. Do we have questions?
Oh, we do. We have plenty of questions. We've had several super chats. I probably will not hit them in the order that they came in, but I want to thank everybody. Well, because they all just end up in the queue. Terry is asking, what defensive position still gives you pause, if any?
You answer that, and I'll think about the right answer.
I don't know that I have a definite answer. I mean, I guess I want to see the defensive line get pressure against a better offensive line, but they didn't face a better offensive line today. They're not facing a better offensive line next week. How's Nebraska's offensive line? Like, they're fine. Purdue's like whatever. Like Michigan State, you think of Michigan State as being a good offensive line. So I mean, Michigan's offensive line's been good. They've gotten, they've protected reasonably well. So I guess I still want to see that. I don't know. I always want to go back and watch the game. Watching from down on the field is not a good way to take in the whole game. It's like, because the way I shoot photos and the way pretty much everyone shoots photos is you always want Ohio State coming towards you. So I'm in the end zone behind the opponent. So like the linebackers, as soon as I snap the ball, the linemen all stand up. Well, the linemen are all pretty big. So half the time, I don't know what the linebackers are doing because they're on the other side of the linemen. And I'm focused on whatever the ball is or whatever I'm shooting in that play. So I don't have a good holistic view of the field. So I always like to go back and watch before I give you a real good answer on that kind of stuff. But, to me, the line, without having seen them do this against a good offensive line, that I guess is my answer.
I would probably go with the Bryson Shaw, Lathan Ransom field safety situation. Maybe that second corner with either Seven Banks or Cam Brown. I think there's still needs to get better. The secondary is solidifying, but right now I'm feeling good. Although Cody Simon did not have a great day at linebacker today. You mentioned the linebackers. He missed some tackles, got juked a bit. So if I'm going in, I'll give you 3. The field safety, free safety, the linebacker situation when maybe Steel Chambers isn't in there, because even Tommy Eichenberg had some nice plays today, and then that second cornerback are maybe my 3 right now.
So the only areas of concern on the defense are the safeties, the corners, the linebackers, and the defensive line.
Yeah, other than that, I think they're pretty good.
Well, we got
the super chat.
Yes, absolutely. Let me jump around. We have several of them. Cameron, could an OSU title this year flip-flop any top 100 recruits in the 22 class?
Well, we know that you can't expect like one game to flip people, but I do think a national championship can, provided those players didn't sign in December. And that's right now the majority of them signed in December, but I think the guys that wait until February are looking for reasons to sign with teams, and winning a national championship is a pretty good reason. It works for Nick Saban.
It does. There's probably a little bit of a cause and effect thing we should talk about there, but I think
I mean, it's self-fulfilling though.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit of a perpetual motion machine for him. I think you typically see that recruiting bump more the year after. You know, if you go back and look, you know, Ohio State winning the 2002 national championship. You didn't have the big recruiting bump in 2003. It was like 2004 and 2014. Like, yeah, it was okay in the 2015 class, but you really typically see it the year after because you're so far into the process.
Yep.
That, you know, guys have basically made up their minds, and one game doesn't necessarily sway someone.
Right, I was going to add, I mean, it's 1 to 2 years, and you're exactly right, because it's a relationship business. Those relationships have been built. It opens doors for you. It's a lot better to be able to go in wearing that national championship gear. So, you know, the hay is in the barn, as John Cooper used to say, in terms of 22 class, if they were to win a title here in 21 at the very beginning of 22, I think you'd see much more impact in 23 and in 24. Joseph with a super chat, will Day go for 100 against Harbaugh?
I think I think if that's an option, he might just try. And what might keep that from happening, I mean, not literally scoring 100, but what might get him to ease off the gas a little earlier than he might deep down in his heart want to, is you have the Big Ten championship game the next week. That is the second of what could be 3 pretty difficult games in a row. I think you're going to see a little load management with TreVeyon Henderson and guys like that, where, you know, if they don't have to, I don't think he's going to run TreVeyon Henderson 30 times for 490 yards in that game just for spite. Like, if that game is out of control, you get those guys out, you rest them up. Because when you go back 2 years when they had the Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin back-to-back-to-back at the end of that 2019 season, they came out flat as a pancake in that Big Ten championship game. It is very hard to get up back-to-back weeks, let alone 3 in a row. You're physically a little bit beat up from those games. If you can kind of get guys out, save some hits on their bodies, I think you're going to do it.
Yeah, you're saying, like, I think the reason why they wouldn't, and to me, I immediately thought, like, won't somebody please think about the children? Like, you know, there's children watching this. You don't need to show this, but I think you're shooting for 100 in the first half. Like, you want 50, and then after that, now you can kind of relax a little bit. And as Ryan Day says about the game, when he wins, it's relief. It's not joy until after the relief part wears off, and you're going to do everything you can in that first half to assure yourself the best chance of winning that game and feeling that overwhelming relief. And so, yes, I think he wants to be on pace for 100 for about 35 to 40 minutes.
Jordan says, in my professional opinion, Tony had the best score prediction, and I'm not just saying that because I had the same score prediction.
See, this is an unbiased source, a just random person off the street who doesn't even matter what he had a score. That's neither here nor there. He agrees with me that I had the best score. So I think you should acknowledge that, both of you.
I think that my big takeaway from this is that Jordan has violated his amateur status, and I'm going to be reporting him to the NCAA. If he has a professional opinion, sorry. Calling Indianapolis.
Oh boy. Running through Super Chat still, Sue asking, how do you think we match up against Alabama or UGA?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the fun question. I think they match up well against both teams. And Alabama, they struggled a little bit with Tennessee before, as they tend to do, just in that fourth quarter. They outscored Tennessee 28-7 in the fourth quarter, won by 28 points. Georgia, I had an NFL scout in my messaging me, DMing me tonight during the game, who covers the Southeast, saying that he thinks Georgia can run on Ohio State, but he definitely wants to see the matchup. And can Georgia run on Ohio State? Probably, but what happens when it's 3rd and 8, and with your garbage man, your mailman perhaps, Stetson Bennett? Like, I think it's winning on first down is going to determine a lot of that Georgia-Ohio State game for both teams. I think Ohio State can score on anybody. What do they need to beat Georgia? Is it 38? Is it 34, 35? We know Ohio State's record when they score 35 points or more is 1,001, right? Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I would think that Georgia game gets into the 30s, but not the 40s. Probably, at least one team gets into the 30s. Georgia can score on Ohio State, but they don't have a super explosive offense. And frankly, at this point, Ohio State might have the best offense in the country. Yeah. I think there's a decent possibility Ohio State has the best offense in the country. And it's like, okay, so congratulations. This is sort of the same conversation we're having about Ohio State at this point. Georgia people are going to say, oh, congratulations, you stopped Indiana. Like, oh, congratulations, you stopped Kentucky. Guess what they do? Suck at offense. So great, cool, good job, everyone. You're kind of not going to know coming in. I mean, there's, I think, week to week, there's a lot of unpredictability because there are, I think, 3 elite teams, and there's a whole bunch of teams that are somewhere between good and okay, but all flawed in some way. And you have seen a lot of those flaws play out. I mean, you saw it with Penn State today. You saw it with Oklahoma today. You saw it with, you've seen it with Michigan over the weeks. Cincinnati very nearly blew it against a not particularly good Navy team. I mean, there's just, you go through that top 10 and it's like, who do you feel is, who do you think, like, this team could beat anyone else in the top 10? Like, even 3 out of 10 times. I don't know that there's anyone else in that top 10 that I look at and I think, Oklahoma could beat Ohio State, Alabama, or Georgia 3 out of 10 times.
No, and I keep thinking that we assume, maybe we do, that Alabama is going to beat Georgia because we can just keep chalking up like both SEC teams in the Final Four in the playoffs, and it would require Alabama to beat Georgia. So, I think Alabama could maybe beat Georgia, but not. I like Ohio State against Alabama, and there's just nobody in that top 10 that you would take against. Like, I don't think there's anybody outside of those top 3 you would take against those top 3. As you said, 3 out of 10. Even right now, Oregon. We saw Oregon beat Ohio State. You think they're going to take 3 out of 10 against Ohio State at this point in time? No.
There is a particular set of circumstances where Ohio State falls just short of the playoff but wins the Big Ten and plays Oregon in the Rose Bowl. And that will be a murder scene because you have seen Ohio State in revenge mode, and Oregon has not been good. Oregon, you look at Oregon's results and it's like there is one, this is a very consistent team. They're just kind of okay. And there's that one result that is this incredible outlier. You want to talk about Ryan Day going for 100 points? Right. I mean, I might pick 70-20 in that game because I think Oregon gets just splattered against the wall.
And it wouldn't even be their fault. Like, Ryan Day is so angry at the committee that he is punishing Oregon for it. I'll show you. I'm going to show that committee, and then you're like, I didn't do it. I'm sorry. We beat you in September. We'll never do it again. Just please stop pummeling us. And it's like, no, you're going to learn a lesson. The committee's going to learn a lesson, and Oregon's like, we know the lesson. Stop it. But
well, and the other question is, if Ohio State gets left out, is Oregon the reason they get left out because the committee somehow decides the head-to-head supersedes the other 11 games of results? Or, maybe Ohio State loses a game and Oregon still gets left out. Because the rest of Oregon's body of work is not good. They are playing an unimpressive schedule and just winning all of them by 3 to 7 points.
Unimpressively.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Oregon and Ohio State are going to be too far separated by the committee to compare them because you have to be close to each other to be compared. And if you're not in the same group of 3, then there's no head-to-head. You're not even looking at each other. So Oregon winning today like they did against UCLA, continuing to do that will help. It's going to move them up. Teams in front of them losing is going to help. But even still, if Ohio State is playing like they are a completely different team than they were in August, September, and the committee knows that, and they say that all the time. And again, as we've said many times here, they're going to do what they want to do, and they'll use whatever logic or reasoning they want, and then the next week they'll do something completely different because that's what they wanted to do as well. And you go back to 2014 with the TCU Baylor stuff. They had it flipped in terms of the higher ranked team was the team that lost the head-to-head. Then at the end, when they moved Ohio State up into the playoffs, then they righted the ship and had the team that won higher than the team that lost. And it was a meaningless flip. But it was almost like, see, head-to-head matters. And it only mattered when they were no longer in the picture.
Well, and I think if you look at the resumes of the teams in the top 5, top 10 right now, I don't know that there's anyone in the country. I don't think even Oregon fans would say, oh, no. Teams would be more scared to play Oregon than Ohio State right now. Like, the argument for Oregon is head-to-head win.
Yep.
That's it. End of argument. That's
But
it.
it's a good
Which
argument.
is it is, yeah.
Yeah.
That is absolutely an argument you can make. It's an argument that people will point to. But in the past, the committee has shown that is not necessarily a hard and fast rule for them if there's a lot of other stuff pointing in the other direction.
Somebody caught me on the title that we had for the show where I basically asked the question, can anyone slow down Ohio State? And they're like, I want to hear the answer to that question before I go to sleep.
Yes, somebody can slow down Ohio State. It's Ryan Day. And we talked about that walking to the car. And he's the only guy in the Big Ten that is going to be able to do it. Now, if they score 38 points against Penn State, I guess that counts because the team is scoring 10 points more than that. So if you can hold Ohio State under 40, that's a pretty good defensive effort in the Big Ten. That's a very good defensive effort in the Big Ten. Unfortunately, nobody in the Big Ten is going to score 40 points against Ohio State, and that's what it's going to take to beat them. So can anybody slow down Ohio State? Maybe. But there has to be some turnovers. It's not going to come down to talent or anything like that. It's going to come down to tipped passes, making almost every single play that is available to you to be made. That's catching those tip passes. That is making sure that the Maryland game when the one kid broke free over Denzel Burke and it was overthrown, making that play happen. Every little break you get, taking advantage of it. And if you only take advantage of 80% of your breaks, you're still probably going to lose by 14.
Right, and yeah, there's no one who can score with Ohio State right now in the Big Ten. Now, can anyone stop Ohio State? Georgia can stop Ohio State. Will they? Maybe. They can. And Alabama can probably. I mean, I'm not in love with this Alabama defense, and I think when people look at last year's result against Alabama, there's a lot of context there about Ohio State not being able to practice because of COVID and missing key players and all that kind of stuff. The talent gap between those two teams was not 28 points, and the talent gap between this year's teams are not even close.
We have another super chat in. Who is Ohio State's toughest matchup in the next 5 games, and why are they a tough matchup for Ohio State?
I think Penn State's secondary, they've got good corners, good safety or two, is a fun matchup for the Ohio State receivers. I think Aiden Hutchinson at Michigan is a great matchup for Ohio State's offensive line. Michigan State doesn't really, I still think they have the second best offense in the Big Ten, but there is Ohio State, then a long gap, and then you flip the page, and it's a long gap, and then page 3, there's Michigan State. And so, the best matchup and the toughest matchup is, it's almost going back to that All-Star game, but I would say, is it Michigan's defense? I don't think so. What is toughest? I think Penn State's defense for me, I would probably say is the toughest matchup remaining, and I think we could see another 54-7.
I don't know you're going to see 54-7. I think Jahan Dotz is going to hit a play or two, and I'm real interested to see what does the Ohio State secondary look like against someone who has an actual deep threat on their team. Now, do they have a quarterback that can get them the ball?
No.
I don't know. Well, I'm going to be polite and say I don't know. But, he's someone who has made plays in the past. He had the same quarterback last year, and he mossed Sean Wade a few times. So, they didn't win, but he makes plays. So I'm interested to see that. The Penn State defense, they played a 9 overtime game today and only gave up 20 points. So that's something.
Is it?
Well,
Is it?
the Michigan State game, let's see what Kenneth Walker does. Can they control a good running back? And Peyton Thorne is a good quarterback, and they can challenge Ohio State. They don't have the playmakers necessarily in the pass game, but they at least have, they can challenge you in both running and passing, which is something that Ohio State really hasn't faced a whole heck of a lot this year. And then Michigan, like Aiden Hutchinson, what is he going to do? David Ajabo, is he as good as you think he is? But Michigan, that secondary, it's like right now it feels like Michigan is kind of getting by because what is probably their big weakness has not been tested, which is the corner spots. And guess what Ohio State has the talent to do?
Exactly. Batman the Man says, "How was your kids' meal, Tony?"
First, which one? I mean,
We've eaten more than one meal on this trip.
yeah. So today I had a chicken breast and some mashed potatoes. The press box food. I don't want to bash Indiana because hey, you gave us some food and the cookies were great, but a spinach wrap of turkey club that had a bunch of wet salad and the wrap just sat for a while and the tortilla was very wet and
Green.
and very green. So I didn't have any kids meals, and I take great offense to that unless it was a super chat, and then in which case I loved my kids meals.
It wasn't a super chat.
Then I take great offense to the assertion that I had a kids meal, and I haven't even had any ketchup since I've been in Indiana. Am I shaking? Yes.
A lot of concerns over Julian Fleming and his not seeing playing time. We talked about it a little bit in the immediate post-game show as we were waiting for Ryan Day and others to take the stage. But a lot of concerns. I believe a lot of the concerns stem from transfer portal, and if they don't play him, is he on his way out? What does this mean with Olave and Wilson? Olave playing his final season, Wilson likely playing his final season. So Fleming in general.
Well, they played everyone. They emptied the bench tonight. Chris Booker, who was a walk-on who used to be on the OSU club football team, had a reception tonight. This was not we played our top 5 receivers, and he's simply not one of them. They played their top about 17 receivers, and he didn't play. Now, he has kind of had a hamstring thing at times this fall. That turf was slick. I tweeted this out at the beginning of the game, but as soon as it started raining, that turf was real slippery, and you saw some guys lose their footing, and it just rained the whole game. So it was wet, it was slick. If you're banged up with a little bit of a hamstring thing, and maybe you're not 100%, or you're worried about aggravating it, that's certainly what I took that to be.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they didn't play him shows you that they have value, that he has value, and they value him, and they want him to be healthy. They want him to play the second half of the season, and they like what he can do. That's just he's had a problem being healthy, and he had the shoulder thing last year that leaked into this year, got that squared away, and then has the hamstring problem, and it just. He wasn't on the. He was good to go, but I think this is just all precautionary, which tells me that they have plans for him.
Tony, where is Julian Fleming from?
Pennsylvania.
Where does Ohio State play a team from next week?
Pennsylvania.
Do you think that Julian Fleming, assuming he's healthy, is probably going to be a part of the game plan next week?
I do. Well, it certainly wouldn't shock me. And I know the transfer portal thing, this would be a very bad time to leave. After this year when Chris Olave is gone, Garrett Wilson is gone, is he still the fourth guy behind Jackson Smith and Jigba, Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison, and then is it Julian Fleming? I think those guys are even enough that they're all going to play. The problem with not getting him playing time this year, even if he's healthy, is the difference between him and Chris Olave. The difference between Chris Olave and anybody is vast. And so the difference between him and other guys next year will be lesser. And so I think this would be it would be a mistake to leave right after the season when things are just starting to open up for him.
Well, the reason he hasn't been on the field a whole heck of a lot is not because he's not good enough.
Right.
It's because he's had a bunch of injuries. He had a shoulder thing last year. He's had a hamstring thing this year. Like, it's just, it's not because they don't like you. It's not because they want you to transfer. I can tell you as a statement of fact that Brian Hartline very much does not want Julian Fleming to transfer. So,
I heard you say does not want Julian Fleming
to transfer.
Oh, I missed that last one.
He very much wants to keep Julian Fleming in that room because they believe in Julian Fleming. He's got the talent. It's just sometimes guys just are not. If you're not healthy, you can't stay on the field. Like, you can't stay on the field. That is Now, I mean, you have seen careers derailed by injuries before, and sometimes you have guys who are like the Justin Hilliard. Justin Hilliard could have transferred. He had injury after injury, and it was year after year after year he couldn't get on the field. And then his last year he was healthy, and then ta-da! Guess what? Hey, it turns out Justin Hilliard's a really good linebacker. Well, guess what's going to happen when Julian Fleming is healthy and can play wide receiver?
Johnny Dixon went 3 years without playing almost. Until he was finally those last 2 years he was out there and turned it into an NFL paycheck.
We're at about 45 minutes. We've got more than a dozen questions in the favorites queue. Let's go lightning round.
All right.
And I'm going to say with lightning round, that means one person gets to answer a question. This isn't a conversation
I know
about
the rules.
I'm just making sure so we can try and get through these because I know there are a lot of people
Is there
that
pizza here?
38 minutes ago.
What? Have you not been paying attention to the phone?
So we'll figure that out. Anyway, so what was our lightning round question?
all right. Wait.
I have a question.
We have to figure out our pizza.
We ordered pizza on the way from the game to here, on the way after the game. It said 2 hours to 2.5 hours. And so you're saying the pizza got here 38 minutes ago?
That is what I'm saying.
Is it just downstairs in the lobby chilling?
That is what I'm saying.
Literally
Yes.
chilling.
So why
That's
don't we
okay.
do we want to have producer Kevin go downstairs and go get the pizza, and you and I can I'll pull up questions and we can run through things.
I'm gonna have to walk through shot and get shoes and everything else. Can you? All right, if you want to do the questions, that's fine. I'll go get the pizza.
That's fine. We'll do that. So okay.
So don't mind me as I walk through.
So what was our? Let's start us off with what was our first question?
Oh my goodness.
Lightning round.
Think of,
Tell me about kids' meals.
I don't think it was. But you can. It's never a bad time for some chicken tenders and some French fries.
Okay, so let's see. We'll go with Jay Burke. Does anyone really think Franklin will leave Penn State?
Here's the problem, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he will leave Penn State. I do think he wants that USC job. However, I think he's harming his chances by what's going on right now at Penn State with James Franklin.
There was a
Lightning round. Sorry.
Yep. Okay.
Go
Dakota.
ahead. Go ahead.
There. Ari Wasserman, our old buddy Ari Wasserman, had a great tweet today, which was USC and LSU watching this Penn State game, and it was the meme of the guy in the bright yellow blazer, leaning up behind a tree and licking his lips and rubbing his hands together, can't wait to get my hands on that. That was a good one. A super chat from Dakota Wistons. Who is the incoming recruit you're looking forward to the most?
2022. I think probably for me, C.J. Hicks, just because he's this prototype of we mentioned on yesterday's show, and he's a linebacker, and they don't have many linebackers, and he is the future of the position. I think can do a bunch of different things. Incredibly athletic, big enough to play inside, and can run like a safety and can blitz. So I think maybe for me, him. I know there's some good receivers coming in. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the receivers are always kind of intriguing to me just because the hit rate has been so high there.
Yeah.
So I mean, Caleb Burton's the 5-star receiver in this class coming up.
Keon Gray's he reminds me of Chris Olave.
Yeah, he's another good one. whether they get Zion Branch, whether they get Xavier Nwankpa, I mean, I think those are probably not bad picks. And what is Larry Johnson going to do with whatever he gets out of the defensive line room? I mean, there's just there are certain position groups where it's just like, some highly talented players coming in here. Like, what is Larry Johnson going to do with them? Like, well, did you see JT Tuimoloau get a sack tonight? Did you see Jack Sawyer blast an Indiana quarterback into another dimension in the sideline? Yes, the answer is. I mean, there's so much talent coming in that, I think if Quinn Ewers hadn't reclassified, Quinn Ewers would be the easy answer. But and we're not going to get to see him this year, so you can kind of cheat and have him be
Dallin Hayden, the running back. I don't expect to see him much next year because, depending on what happens with, who knows what's going to happen with the transfer portal.
Cody Allen wants to know, do you think we should see more of Court Williams? We need to shuffle around, but Bryson Shaw continues to stand out for the wrong reasons on defense. Do you agree with that? I mean, I feel like Bryson Shaw's been better.
I think he's been better, but he had a couple of missed tackles in this one. But they don't really play the same position. Court Williams is that bullet, which ends up moving back to the boundary safety, playing next to that field safety. We actually talked to Court Williams after the game. They brought him into the post game. He looked good, had a nice tackle, and is just getting more into form. And somebody asked him after the game, "Were you maybe not healthy to start the season?" He's like, "No, I've been completely healthy. I just need reps. I haven't played in a couple of years. I just need to play and get reps and just get that experience." And that's what he's doing. And will he play more? You're taking Ronnie Hickman off the field to play him. So that's an issue.
I have trouble pulling Ronnie Hickman off the field. Ronnie Hickman has been, I don't know if he's been the single best player on the defense, but he's been up there. He's been just dynamite this year. So one more, producer Kevin. No one shoplifted our pizzas, so Christmas is safe.
I don't see any steam coming off of those pizzas.
Well,
I wonder why, Tom. I was even gonna tell him. I was like, just watch your phone.
Yes. I was I looked at my phone because I'm like, oh well, I'm looking 35 minutes earlier than they told us was the early part of the window. Sorry,
but
you're not here to see mom and dad bicker.
No,
Sorry.
we have been pleasantly surprised. I'll say this about Bloomington: pleasantly surprised by the pizza delivery times. Outstanding.
Would you say it's the most impressive thing about this entire state?
Well. I do appreciate their love of John Cougar Mellencamp.
I was just about to say the same thing.
But I don't know what that's not really impressive. I appreciate it. I don't know that it's impressive.
It's commitment to the bit. I can respect commitment to the bit. All right, one more that
Did you get the super chat that
yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes, that just came in. Yeah, go ahead and take it. Yep.
All right, so we did the incoming recruit.
Yes.
Okay. If I asked and if you've answered any of these, just say next. Do you think the game would have been a little bit more competitive if Tuttle didn't get hurt? That's from Redman.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about that a little bit. I mean a little more competitive, sure. So then it's 54-14 because I don't think it impacts Ohio State's score at all because even if it limits Ohio State's score in the first half, that just means, well, then Ohio State's going to keep the pedal down a little longer in the second half. Because that could have been 70 if Ohio State had wanted. That could have been 80 if Ohio State had wanted. If Ryan Day really wanted to prove a point to Tom Allen, they could have come close to 100 points. If they really, that involves Travion Henderson just being out there and just, doing the video game thing. They probably could have done that. That obviously is ridiculous in real life. You're never going to do that. But, what about tonight made you think a drive with Travion Henderson on the field is going to end with something other than an Ohio State player getting lifted up in the air by an offensive lineman in the end zone? Because I didn't see a darn thing.
No, and that's why you have to take him off the field because at some point it's no longer fair. And I know we're trying to do a lightning round, but the reason he doesn't always play is because there's still like. Got to be sportsmen about this. There's sportsmanship. You don't want to just destroy people's psyches and their well-being, and just for their own safety, you have to remove Travion Henderson sometimes. He's I don't want to say he's like radioactive to a defense, but he's pretty close. He's like football Chernobyl.
We talked at the very beginning of the show about, oh man, we've got a crazy stat we're going to share with you.
Yes.
And now we're like 50 minutes in and we haven't shared it. So this is from the great Jerry Emig. The Ohio State offense with C.J. Stroud at quarterback has scored touchdowns on 19 consecutive drives, starting with the first drive following the field goal versus Rutgers, and not counting any drives and kneel down where Ohio State was not trying to score. 19 consecutive drives with touchdowns. Go back to the 2011 season. I bet you could go half of the season and Ohio State didn't score 19 touchdowns.
You know, you asked me who's going to stop this Ohio State offense. It's Jerry Emig, because as soon as he shared that stat and everybody tweeted it out, Ohio State had to punt. C.J. Stroud got sacked and they ended up punting. So, who can stop Ohio State's offense? I give you the Ohio State Sports Information Director.
The views of Tony Gerdeman do not reflect the views of Tom Moore or Kevin Noon.
Exactly. DK had a couple of super chats in here. He wanted to know, how loud was Tom screaming when Igbuka looked like he might take that return to the house?
Okay, so here is my exact thought process, because I don't think we haven't posted the photo gallery yet because we've been running around trying to get this stuff done. But when I post the photo gallery, you will see Emeka Egbuka is running directly at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. And before he was even to the ground, I thought I picked that as a bold prediction. And what Tony's going to say is, well, this was a free kick, this was not a kickoff, so it doesn't count. And then I was plotting how I was going to murder Tony. That was all before, but I mean, it was a slow developing plan. But yeah, it's going to happen. Like, it is going to happen.
No, lightning round.
I don't have the question here in front of me to put it on the board, but somebody wanted to know who snores the loudest.
I can't hear anybody. I don't know that there's any snoring, but I know that it's me.
We're all in separate rooms, so it's worked out okay. But
there you go.
That wasn't a super chat, was it?
No. I always warn you if it's a super chat, so that we have to play well there. Pats11 is Palaie Naote still hurt. I saw he got in towards the end of the game, but I'd like to see him get more meaningful snaps.
He's obviously not hurt. If they're playing him tonight, he's not hurt. He's just someone who doesn't have quite as big a role this year, because the spot where he plays in the linebacker, they've got the three spots, the Will, the Mike, and the Sam. The Will and the Mike are your two inside spots. Sam's your outside spot. That's where last year that was like Baron Browning played that. It's just kind of like a little bit of a bigger linebacker. He is that is the spot that is coming off the field for them to add the bullet or the cover safety, whichever one of those you want to think of as the extra defensive back. Going from a 4-3-4 to more of a 4-2-5. The going from 3 to 2 at linebacker is the Sam is not on the field nearly as much. You may see him more in the future as they play teams that are a little more run heavy. You could see him against Michigan, for example. You could see him against Iowa if they play Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. Like, that's where you're going to see maybe more of a role for that Sam backer. He is making plays. He had a tackle for loss tonight. That was a good play. But
Everybody did.
yeah, well, yes, that's true. Literally, I think I had a tackle for loss at one point. Someone tripped over my foot on the sideline. But yeah, no, it was like he's working himself into being a more of a contributor. It's not necessarily like it's not you, it's me. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not you, it's the defense.
Cody Allen, do you guys think we should see some more of Court Williams? Would need to shuffle around.
Next.
All right, well, there you go. Sam Maloney, can we talk about CJ's throw down the seam? Unreal.
He had several unreal throws, and they're just becoming routine now. And he had a couple of those really nice throws, even against Oregon and Minnesota, but the consistency wasn't there. Now the consistency is there. He's 75% completion in this one, I think 70% in the last one, and like, he is able to place footballs between defenders. He trusts his receivers. Some of these are back shoulder, or it's just 50-50, and like, I've got Garrett Wilson, I've got Chris Olave. That's not actually 50-50. And a 50-50 doesn't have to be a jump ball. It can just be a an easy fade or at a back shoulder in the end zone, and he has so much confidence in his guys, and they have confidence in themselves. They have confidence in him, and it's just working really well. And when you trust everybody, you have the confidence to put the ball where you think it exactly needs to be. Aim small, miss small type of thing. And he's not missing much at all. And yeah, some really, really nice throws. And it's I almost said it's only going to get better. I don't know how much better you can get, but it's only going to continue, maybe, to say that.
All right, we've got 6 left in the queue, and if any super chats come in, we'll add them, and then we'll eat our lukewarm pizza. Diego, real question: with a team this young, where do you draw the line on pulling the ones? I know young guys need reps, but the ones are young guys.
If the game's out of reach, I feel like it's a half plus a drive or a half plus 2 drives in a lot of cases, where you want to get, you give like C.J. Stroud a drive or 2 in the second half. Like this was 44-7 at the half, and he had 1 or 2 drives in the second half, I believe, and then that's it. And then you want to give the other guys a chance. And when you get into, if it's a little closer in the second half, and you're getting into the fourth quarter, if they're up 4 touchdowns, that's probably about where that line gets drawn, or 3 touchdowns with 5 minutes left, something like that. Like they're gonna be very cautious with it. They're not going to. It's not going to be like, well, we're up 14 points and it's the third quarter, and it's probably fine. Like They're not. They know they have no margin for error. They can't have a close win at this point. They have to just keep curb stomping people all season, and so they're not gonna mess around with that. But they do want to get those younger guys in as well.
Yeah, I just want to add, Travion Henderson now 78 carries in 7 games, 11 carries a game, 11, and it's just there's just you would like to see more, but it's not worth the risk at this point. Yeah, you want him to be out there, but do you really want him out there in the third quarter of a 52-7 game and then miss him next week against Penn State or anything like that? And the risk just isn't worth the reward, because you've already got the reward. The check has been cashed. You're going to win this one.
Jordan Kapler with a super chat. How many times does C.J. Stroud need to strip the ball from his own teammate to get into the Heisman conversation? Also looking forward to the photos, Tom.
Yeah, the photos tonight are the lighting was weird. It was kind of a crazy night to shoot, and I promise I recognize that Kevin is hungry and this is the lightning round, but the rain and the lighting there was kind of crazy. There are some that are going to look weird, and then there's some that are like, I want to hang this in the Louvre. There were a couple of those, so that's always good. It's always nice to have a few of those. I think the Caleb Williams for Heisman thing is probably done. The Caleb Williams for Heisman thing probably shouldn't have started.
I will just say that the 2 plays he made in this game was like a 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, and he made a dude miss, and he ran in for a touchdown, and then taking the ball away from his own running back that got stopped short. Those are 2 Heisman plays, like 2 Heisman moments for Caleb Williams, but you're not playing enough games. I'm sorry. Yes, and you barely beat Kansas. So did you have some moments? Yes, but you're not. He's not. They're going to try to make this happen, but compare it to what C.J. Stroud is doing right now. Just put the stats, because again, this is a statistics award. Put the stats out there and see what happens.
I'm just looking, the college football final or whatever the show is. We have that on, and I'm just sort of getting caught up on the day of football because I didn't get to see much of anything. They have Joey Galloway and someone else, and they're doing, ranking the top teams in the nation. And, they're doing the usual controversial, oh, I think this team's second. Oh, I think this team's fifth. The only 2 teams who are in the top 3 for both of them are Ohio State and Georgia. One of them had Ohio State 2. One of them had Ohio State 3. That's, I think, the Oregon thing is, unless Ohio State loses or has a couple close games, I don't know that the Oregon thing is really a thing.
Yeah.
Let me sit back down here. Mika Hanna, I hope Mayan Williams will be okay. We need all hands on deck for the rest of the season.
Well, that has to be a concern, because you've got Travion Henderson, who we know they have Travion Henderson. Mayan Williams, another little ding today. We don't know how serious. You have Marcus Crowley. Sounds like he's out for the year. just the way C.J. Stroud talked about him, it was like, I feel really bad for my man. And, Teague sounds like he's not necessarily as big a concern, but, he was out this week. So you only have one, like, truly healthy running back right now with, and then you have Evan Pryor. But Evan Pryor is probably not, ready for prime time yet. He's still...
when he got blown up on that one block.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I mean, he needs another year in the strength program, and that's fine. Like, he's a true freshman. They obviously really like what they see out of him, but he's a true freshman, and he came in a little small. He's a little on the smaller side, and he just needs another year in that program.
All right, I've been kind of paring them down as I sit there and think about the pizza and the beverages in the freezer, hoping they don't explode. Last one that I've got is... why is nobody asking about Steel Chambers? He tackled a guy by the huevos tonight. Give that man his Heisman. And that was an edit there. Yeah.
So is that the Heisman moment? You just see it and you just replay it, and that's the Heisman moment. Yeah, Steel Chambers, at some point during every game, he flashes and he makes a play. And certainly made one of my bold... No, we're not going to talk about the bold predictions because we're wrapping up and we don't need to get into it. But, yeah, I think he was kind of quiet today, but they were just playing so many guys on defense, and they all played reasonably well and made plays and got into the backfield. So, yeah, if I wouldn't recommend... I don't know that that's how Ohio State teaches the tackling. That's not the Seattle Seahawks tackling. More of a, I don't know, is it the Cleveland Browns tackling?
I don't know the context. I'm sort of gleaning it here. That sounds a little bit like Clemson tackling based on something.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yes. I'm not doing any more of this.
The old Clemson credit card.
I'm not. Kevin, what's next?
I was going to say, last one, parting shot here, was asked.
We don't need any parting shots. Like, here, one more. Rip on Tom and Tony. And then
No, this isn't. This is about ripping on you guys.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No, finally, who wins, Michigan or Michigan State?
Oh, Tom, you go first, and I'll tell you if you're right.
I think it's Michigan. I think it's Michigan.
Yes.
I'm not buying either of those teams really. Before we continue this conversation, I have to just. There's a commercial right now on for a product called Buy Hammered, which, boy, if you're gonna advertise a product at 2 a.m. or 1:30 a.m., like, boy, Buy Hammered is like, that is your target audience. Okay, moving on. Michigan State. I don't totally buy either of those teams.
Yeah.
They're just like, maybe Michigan does Michigan State have enough of a passing attack to challenge the Michigan secondary and have us actually find out if the Michigan secondary really is better?
They do, but will they? For some reason, teams just don't attack Michigan downfield as much as they should. And I think if you do that, that also kind of pushes them back a little, softens them for the run, even though they're going to have to focus on stopping Kenneth Walker. They've got to gear up for that. So that should leave some stuff available downfield. You have to convert it. You have to hit it. But at the end of the day, I just see Michigan just slowly glomming on, and Cade McNamara is 12 of 19 for 136 yards, and Michigan rushes for 194 yards, and it's enough to win 24-13, and it's just really I was so much more hopeful, and I'm looking forward to it, but I'm feeling more and more like it's going to be Michigan because I have seen Michigan State's offense disappear now. And so now it's like, well, I saw you disappear against Indiana, so I'm going to assume you will also disappear against Michigan, even though I think they have the ability to beat Michigan for sure. They did last year, but I've lost some faith.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, you have seen Michigan and Michigan State both kind of struggle against teams they probably shouldn't be struggling against. I mean, Michigan was 20-13 against Rutgers. We saw what Ohio State did to Rutgers. Michigan State was 20-15 against Indiana. It was the same Indiana team you just saw. It was not, this was not like half of them got kidnapped. Like, that was the same Indiana team, and that did not look like a team that a true top 10 team should be 20 to 15 against. But, then we just saw a top 10 Penn State team lose at home 20 to 18. Like, it just feels like there's a lot of volatility in the bottom 13 of the Big Ten. But the top one seems pretty solid right now.
Yeah, I think so. And is that it, Kevin? Have we run through them all? Have we defeated them?
I was going to say we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but I think
Let's
we're
do
good.
that. Come on. Hours and hours. I mean, the pizza's already cold. What's it going to get colder?
Yes. In fact, it will get colder.
Fine.
Say goodnight, Tom.
One thing I do want to mention, I'm looking at right now, most touchdowns by a freshman in Ohio State history, 18 for Maurice Clarett in 2002.
Yes.
18 for Maurice Clarett in 2. Now I've lost the ability to speak. Good.
Yeah, let's go for hours and hours now. Let's keep going.
This is water in the cup. I swear. 14 for Travion Henderson already in 7 games, where he's getting 11 carries a game.
Ridiculous.
I mean.
Now, he is also catching the ball once or twice a game, and he has 3 touchdown catches now, or at least 2. And so, like, and just imagine if he touched the ball more. He'd have 20 touchdowns already right now, maybe leading the country in scoring. So, hey, I think that will do it. Thank you for all of the questions. Thank you for the super chat contributions. Sorry we couldn't get to everything. It is officially 1:43 in the morning. It's been a long day, but you guys know that. You've been up since the same time we were. Around 7:15 this morning we got up so that we could just be prepared for the day. Tom, Kevin, is that right?
Yoga, calisthenics, what have you.
I was up by 8.
Kevin was in the room just doing Iroquois twists. It was like, Kevin, please.
Yeah. Anyway, before this goes even any further, we do want to thank you guys for watching, for tuning in. And as always, you can continue to find our videos here at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good night. We will talk to you guys later.